Welcome to Daily Success. Listen in on these personal conversations with today's leaders, innovators, and influencers as they discuss daily success principles, systems, and solutions. Get ready for Daily Success. Now, here's your host.
Hi, everyone. This is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to talk with Dr. Joanny Liu today. Dr. Joanny left behind a lucrative career as an engineer to become a doctor of Chinese medicine because she wants to make mental health and human potential the focus of the health profession. That is what informs her work with peak performance and optimal living. Dr. Joanny is the founder and chief human potential officer of Extraordinary Sports Medicine and Concussion Answers, an award-winning multi-time speaker at Harvard to international audiences. She is the author of 3 books, including international bestseller, Your Concussion, How to Quickly and Effectively Get Back in the Game. She's been featured on Fox, NBC, CTV, Global TV, and spoken on stages at the Harvard clubs in the United States of America, NASDAQ, at Million Dollar Accelerators in New York City, Times Square, and to hundreds of top executives, entrepreneurs, doctors, lawyers, and specialists. Her daily success giveaway is peak performance, the top 7 things that peak performers do that you can do too. And I just want everyone to know, I've had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Joanny previously, where we really dove into her work with concussion. So I'm really excited today to find out more about peak performance. So welcome, Dr. Joanny.
Thank you so much. That was a great introduction. You're such an enthusiastic person, Tiffany.
Well, I really am excited because I think I've really come up with something with my daily success concept. And when I saw that you had the peak performance concepts, I was like, wow, that's exactly what people need in order to have daily success, because every single day we need to be performing, and just like what you say, performing at our peak. So can you tell me more about peak performance? And I know that you use an iceberg as a symbol of peak performance. Why do you do that?
Well, first of all, I want to say that peak performance has a very simple definition for me. It really is about self-mastery. And I use the iceberg. Most people use the iceberg saying that, everybody knows a little bit of data, and then there's a whole bunch of data at the bottom, that we don't know about. So that's what, tip of the iceberg usually means. But the symbol of the iceberg to me, is really more about the majority of the population who are living average to mediocre lives. And, it's dark, it's dank, it's freezing down there, and it's pretty crowded. And those are people who are more than likely going to be going to their deathbed, thinking about what they would have, should have, could have done, but they never did. But the top of the iceberg, that's in the sunshine. It's in the fresh air. And that's where the people who have taken control of their lives go, and they're living exactly the life that they've dreamed of because they're not afraid of doing that. So it's all about self-mastery in order to get to that point.
So that's really interesting, because you're right. Most people, when you think about the iceberg, they think nobody's really looking at that underlayer. And you're right. There's only a little tiny bit of the iceberg showing. So when you talk about a peak performer, what are some of the major characteristics of someone who is a peak performer?
It's a very good question. For one thing, they know what they want. So they are setting goals, and not just any goals. They are setting big, big goals. It looks impossible to them at the time when they're setting it, but the idea pops in their mind, and it really is something that they want. And then they create a plan, and then they start executing it. For a lot of people who have goals, they come across the first obstruction, the first obstacle, and they quit. And it doesn't even have to be a very large obstacle. But for peak performers, they can have something that looks really insurmountable, like let's say somebody who's in sports and they have a catastrophic injury. And everybody's telling them that they'll never walk again, that they'll never be able to do anything that they ever did before. And yet there are people who have bounced right back, and they have defied medical people, and they've come back and won championships. In business, people have bankruptcies. You know how a lot of successful entrepreneurs have had their successes, and then they run into bankruptcy situation, and eventually they just bounce right back up and they create another spectacular business. And so it's about never giving up. It's about slaying your dragons. It's holding that picture in your mind of what it is that you really want all the time, never giving up on that goal, but you got to change that plan. I'd say those are the top things about what a peak performer is. Heck, everybody knows Michael Jordan. How he was cut from his high school basketball team, but that didn't stop him. LeBron James, he grew up very poor, but his mother had a vision for him, and he had a vision for himself, and look where he is now. So, I like looking at sports stories because people draw inspiration from them.
It is interesting because, again, when you look at most people who are successful, they've had failure after failure. One of the most famous ones is Edison and the light bulb, and his quote was something like he had 10,000 failures, but it was that 10,001 that actually ended up turning into the light bulb. And of course, that was changed everything for people. And I think you're right, because the sports people, because they're out in the public, people recognize that. So if somebody wants to become a peak performer, what do they have to do?
Well, first they have to decide. And they've got to look deep inside themselves. And they got to realize that there is something that they want. And then they just got to make a decision that they're going to go after it. Now, the interesting thing about decisions is that you actually have to make the same decision every single day until it becomes a habit. So becoming a habit really requires taking 66 days, not 21 days. There's a myth behind that, which I'll explain really quickly. Apparently, the guy who was talking about how long it takes to make a habit, he talked about at 21 days, that's when the habit begins, not when it's made. And so as you get along to the 45th day, it's beginning to form. But if you keep up with something on a daily basis for 66 days, then you really should have the habit. And I guess the other thing is that you may stumble along the way, but just start all over again. So don't beat yourself up for not doing, something every single day. But after 66 days, you just keep telling yourself what you want. And it's really important in order to make that decision stick to actually visualize what that goal means to you at the end. So those are two very important things. First, you got to know what you want and be courageous about it, be honest about it. Then you create a habit out of making the decision every day for at least 66 days. And you visualize it and you take action on it.
I think taking the action seems to be, it's one of the things that I know that I do pretty well is I take action on creating things. But that is really interesting that you're right. Most people, they say, oh, you have to do something for 21 days and then it's a habit. But for me, I know, for example, exercise has been one of the hardest things for me to do, and anything can get me off track. Like if I go on a trip, all of a sudden, you go on a trip and you're gone for a week, and so your routine is broken. And I find that that's really difficult to get back on track, to get back, especially if I'm trying to go to the gym or something. And it's a lot easier if I just say, okay, I'm going to walk around my yard, 3 times every so many hours. That's a lot easier to do than actually getting dressed and going to the gym. And of all the things that, like you've talked about the sports, you've talked about a little bit about business, but what are some of the main reasons why somebody would even want to be a peak performer in the first place?
A lot of people think that being a peak performer is someone with really special skills, someone with special powers. But all a peak performer is an ordinary person who just one day decided that they were going to do something extraordinary. And they made that decision. And then they went and did it. And then they just kept on trying to do spectacular things. Once you taste something really good, you want more of it.
I think you're right. You're right about that. And it's not necessarily tasting the food, but the taste of success. And that's something that for me, that when I became self-employed in 2009, and I had a little bit of success, it was like, ooh, I like that. And so it's like, how can I keep moving forward? And you're right. Along the way, I hit some roadblocks, and there were many times when I was like, I'm going to have to go get a job. And when I say job, I'm spelling it because it's like a cuss word. And I was taught not to swear. And it's so funny because I wonder how many people, especially in the entrepreneurial journey, that they hit some roadblock, maybe they lose an account. Somebody treats them badly. There's so many things that can happen along the way that could make you believe that, I'm not on the right path. And I wanted to ask you about that. When you're on this peak performance path, how do you know if you're on the right path? Because you said about you decide. How do you know that you're making the right decisions to get to become whoever it is that you're trying to be? Because to me, the peak performance path there's an end result, and that is to get there faster than, the slow way, which is to, keep spinning your wheels. But if you make the decision, you decide every day, so you're on this path. So how do I know that I've made that right decision?
Well, it depends on the type of goal you make. Because I said at the beginning that it's really important to have a big, big goal. But a lot of people make really little goals, so there's 3 types of goals in actuality. There's an A-type goal. So let's say, you like Toyotas and you bought a brand new Toyota about 10 years ago. And so all your friends are talking about, oh my God, the new Toyotas have all these bells and whistles, wow, they're just fantastic to drive now. And so you kind of look at your Toyota and, yeah, it's getting long in the tooth there. Paint's starting to not be as shiny, doesn't look so great, so hot anymore. So, okay, I'm going to go out and buy myself a new Toyota. So that's their new goal. But the problem with that type of goal is that you already know how to do it. You've already done it before. So it's not very inspiring. And then there's the B type goal. And so let's say you're in sales. I think that's probably the easiest example. And so people like to set annual sales projections, and let's say they're talking about, oh, man, I can maybe do 5% or 10% better than how I did last year. And I'll create a plan. And if all these action items all line up and everything goes well, then I can definitely do this 5 or 10%. But a lot of people, they kind of get bored with goals like A and B, so it doesn't inspire them. But when it comes down to making a C-type goal, which is something that you really, really want, that's how you know if you made the right decision, because it's something that you really, really want. It's not this boring, I want a new Toyota, or I can just do 5, 10% better. That's boring. So you've made the right decision when you have a really big, inspiring, scary goal, because it's based on what you really, really want, not on what you think you can do.
Well, I guess I'm on my way to the big, audacious, scary goals because of the things I want. So how do you work with people when they're trying to become peak performers?
Well, first, it really is about getting them to be honest with themselves. I will ask them about whether they have goals and why they don't. If they say, oh, I don't really, and then I dig a bit deeper, well, quite a bit deeper, and ask them a lot more questions and finally dig it out of them. Okay. And some people will still be in denial. But it really comes down to that, is getting them to admit that they really do want something so badly. And for instance, a young teenage boy, I was helping him with his 3rd concussion in 8 months. And so we were able to heal that fairly quickly. And so with the rest of our time, I asked him, okay, you're in competitive hockey, so what do you want to do with your life? So he said, well, I want to play in the NHL. Okay, that's great, but are there any specifics? And, hesitating, not wanting to reveal what he really wants, but I just kept digging and finally got it out of him that he wants to play for a particular team. Dug a bit more, asked more questions, found out that, okay, he wants to play with particular players. And then, but all along the way, you could tell there was hesitancy, there was self-doubt coming out. I can tell. And he said, okay, so can I really do this? Can I really do that? Can I really have that? I said, yeah. Why not? So asking that question, why not, made him think that, oh, I really can do this. And so this boy has been transformed. And he is thinking like somebody who is going to make it to his goal. Now, I told him that, make a plan, but know that the plan's going to change. But never let go of that goal. So his behavior is so much better now. because he's focused on exactly what he wants.
I think that's a really good illustration of when people have these big goals that they think are like unattainable, and yet when you say, yes, give me a specific name of the team you want to play for, give me the names of the people you want to play with, then you actually have it gives your subconscious excuse me, something to work with.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, certainly the best way to do that is to reach out to me at www.drjoanny.com, so drjoanny.com. And my phone number is 1-403-282-8116, and that's an office number. You can, as you said at the beginning, it's really important to come out to my website and sign up for the 7 things the 7 things that peak performers do that you can do too, to learn more about my work.
And I think that's a really great gift. The top 7 things that peak performers do that you can do too. It's funny because there's a singer who does that with their hand, with the rhythm of the words. But I think that that's so great. And that example that you gave of the young man who wants to be the professional hockey player, that really resonated with me because, like I said, I really think that when you can see what it is that you want and you have real names and real people and real scenarios around it, it makes it that much easier for you to move forward. And I really like the fact that you said, hey, don't just settle for, the new Toyota goals or the goals that you can achieve, but go for the big goal. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's so important in the world today that if you're operating at that peak level, then you're always going to show up better and bigger in everything you do, not just in the little things or that big goal, but you're going to show up on that daily basis and really have daily success. So Dr. Joanny, thank you so much. Before I let you go, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I just want everybody to know that being a peak performer doesn't mean you're always going to be successful, but you're going to be remembered for all of your successes. And you're going to love your successes. And it's living a really bold life about who you really are. You're not seeking permission from anybody to go after your big goal. You just go out and do it, and the right support is going to come, even if you're not, surrounded by the support that you need right now. But just keep going at it, and you'll have the right support right around you, and it's going to be amazing.
Well, super. Thank you, Dr. Joanny. Everyone, this is Tammy Patzer, and I really love that. Be bold and go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to Daily Success. Tune in again and subscribe. Never miss a moment of daily success.